Oh God. Well, hello and welcome back to another week of my allotment. The 2 weeks since I last posted a video have been great weather. I know this is pretty miserable behind me, and I do think it's going to improve through the day. It's a bit drizzly, but yeah, we've had lots of clear blue skies, very little wind, and it's dried up the plot. It's certainly been good for me at work. Yeah, it's been really good news. It really has dried everything up. I mean, who knows what, we're not out of the woods yet, but right now the weather is helping. Having said that, the two cold spells we've had, one back in December when we had -8 on this site, and the one we've just had with lots of heavy frosts, have done damage. I think I've said that before. All the geraniums that we overwinter in the greenhouse at home and in the shed here have all died. They're all gone soft and soggy where the cold temperatures, they're just not hardy enough. I think I may have lost all the onion sets that I planted in the autumn. They've gone all squishy. They're still rooted. You know, when you go to pull one out, it's the roots are binding, but the actual bulb itself has gone soft. So I'm going to, inside the soft bulb there is still a hard core, so I'm going to leave them another month maybe, see what happens. I am busy at home sowing onion seeds as a replacement, as a backup, which is always a good idea. I've done a few other jobs on the plot since I last saw you, and I'll show you those in a second. But you're very welcome. Welcome to the new, I've got a couple of new subscribers, so you're very welcome. So let's have a look around and see what I've been up to, and the positives and the negatives. First thing I would say is I was very lucky that I managed to obtain some of these pallet collars, which, if you don't know what they are, they're, as the name suggests, they fit on pallets for storage of stuff and transportation. And the garden centre were getting rid of them, so I've had them. They open up and you put two of them on top of each other and they become a raised bed, a pop-up raised bed. They're very handy. But I've got some more of them, and I've got 26 individual beds. There's one sat there. 26 individual beds. I've got 4 of these pallet collar raised beds. I've got 9 or 10 really big tubs that I grow carrots and parsnips in. I've got 30 litre tubs for growing potatoes in, and then I've got various other bits and pieces that I grow things in, and still I'm looking for more space to grow stuff. So I've made a decision. Those pallet collars I think will make 3 individual raised beds, and what I'm going to do is, where these paths go out onto the path between me and my neighbour, I'm going to take these slabs up, and instead of having that path running through there, I'm going to put those pallet collar raised beds on 3 of these paths here. Does that make sense? That also means I'll gain some slabs, which was always useful. The pallet collars are just a bit wider than this path is, so it will mean a little bit of messing about with the wooden borders, but it's easy enough. So, and I'll gain 3, and of course because they're there, the sun shines from behind me, they won't cast a shadow on any of my beds. My neighbour doesn't grow anything on this ground anyway, so that's not a concern, and they're not high enough to shadow his or shade his plot anyway, which is always a consideration when you're putting up stuff, that you don't impinge on your neighbour's plots. Like his polytunnel, the shade is cast on the other side. It's not a concern for me. When I moved the pond, I moved it from where the seating area is there, across the track to there, and that was the gooseberry bush bed, so the gooseberry bushes had to be relocated. 3 of the gooseberry bushes were in this bed here, and this week I've lifted them because they're dormant. I thought that would be a good time, and the ground is soft but not waterlogged. I've moved them from that bed there to this bed here, They're down the bottom here. So on this bed I've got 3 blackcurrant bushes. There's a honeyberry. Oh, the honeyberry's there. And then I've got, surrounding the honeyberry are 5 gooseberry bushes. So that's a complete fruit bed. It just consolidates everything and keeps it well ordered, which of course means it's opened up another bed, which I think I'll use for onions, because we just cannot grow enough onions. Growing them is easy, it's the storing I always find a challenge. But anyway, that's a job well done. This bed here is the bed I've selected to grow my peas in this year, and I can thoroughly recommend these Harris fencing panels. You see them to keep the public out on building sites and damaged buildings, etc. But because they're made of metal, is it aluminium? I think it is. They're fairly light and they're solid. I mean, as long as you erect them correctly, nothing can knock them over and they don't deteriorate. So I've put these 4 posts in really deep, and at some point today I will put those panels up and just tie them onto these posts with wire, and that's going to be my pea bed for the year. I learnt a couple of little bits of useless information recently that I'd like to relay to you. You know, all that bump that we get through the mail, all those leaflets advertising everything and anything, none of which you want, and I'll come back to bump in a minute. But I've got various pamphlets, you know, that come through the mail, and I learnt the origin of the word pamphlet. In the 12th century there was a man called Pamphilus who was famous for his sexual exploits with women. And the masses were so fascinated with these stories that somebody had the bright idea of producing little booklets which retold his conquests. And because his name was Pamphilus, these were called pamphlets. And that's the origin of the word pamphlet. And of course all this stuff that comes through the post, all the needless paperwork and so on, I certainly know that as bump. And the word bump, B-U-M-F, is shortened for bum fodder. And that comes from the First World War, when the soldiers were always looking for something with which to wipe their backsides. And so any surplus paperwork or the such like, they would use it, and it was called bum fodder. You don't get this kind of culture anywhere else, do you? Yeah, bump, short for bum fodder. Quite interesting. These are my broad beans that were sown and planted in the autumn, Aqua Dulce Claudia, and they really have taken a bashing from these cold temperatures. I put those glass panels there to protect them from the westerly cold winds. Actually, that hasn't been the problem. The problem, like I say, has been the cold temperatures. And, you know, there's 2 of those 4 just, you know, limp and finished. I reckon I've lost maybe 40% there. You know, it can't be helped. But again, you learn every year, don't you? I mean, I've been doing this now 7 years. You think I'd know what I was doing. Mind you, you see some old timers, they've been going 30 years and they're still learning. But I've decided I will always sow my broad beans in the autumn because it beats the black fly. But what I'm going to do in future, rather than plant them in the ground, is I'm going to do this. These are the dwarf broad bean, the Sutton. And that's how I'll grow them. There, actually, I've just seen a couple of little, oh no, thought I had some slug damage, I haven't. Yeah, they're perfectly protected in there. The frost don't make them limp. The slugs and snails can't get at them. So that's what I'm going to do with my broad beans every year. I will sow them in the autumn and I will grow them on in those pots under some glass protection, and then I will plant them out maybe March, end of March, something like that. Same with this garlic. Nothing's getting at it. It looks really good and healthy. I think this is the way to do it in the future. Anyway, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Trial and error. You find the way that works for you, your site and the conditions of it. I don't think I've ever done this before, but I watched a couple of things on YouTube recently and I thought these things should be shared. So I'm going to give you two recommendations. One is an 8-minute clip, and I'll put the title of it on YouTube on the screen, and one is a 5-minute clip. The first one is listening to a man called Konstantin Kissin. I think that's right. And he gives an 8-minute talk at the Oxford Debating Society, where they're talking about the debate is about, has woke culture gone too far? He doesn't actually talk about woke culture, whatever that is. He talks about climate change, and I think it was an inspiring talk. He didn't have any script. He got a lot of laughs and a lot of applause. I think he got a standing ovation at the end. But I find it fascinating the way we're being spoken to by the media and the government at the moment, just to listen to something that provokes thought and critical thinking. I recommend it to you. It's only 8 minutes long. It's gone viral. Over 50 million people have watched it in a week, and I think you should. Let me know what you think. And the second one is just 5 minutes of sheer unadulterated joy, and it involves that violinist called Andre Rieu. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm aware of him. I've never been to any concerts. It's not really my kind of music. I just appreciate real talent in this world of fake and all these awful crappy TV shows, Britain's Got Talent and all that. To see someone who actually does have talent is a joy, and it just put a smile on my face, and I thought everybody should watch that. So I can recommend those two clips to you. Let me know what you think. Well, that's a major disappointment. Those last two tubs, every single potato is rotten and squishy. I'm going to guess, because they're in tubs, with those very cold temperatures we have, the freezing conditions have got into the soil and rotted them. So another lesson learned.
Fire one first.
Yeah, why not?
Oi, oi.
Let's find out if I've got these posts in the right place.
Oh,
To me? To me a bit?
I'll go to you a bit. Oh, you want them on the inside?
Yeah, if they'll go,
Yeah,
perfect.
you better put on there. You're going to lash these to that?
Yeah,
Like that?
that should hold itself up there, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
And the same again.
Tight on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
push it in, mate. Thank you. Perfect.
I didn't push that one in.
No, it's all right. I'll mess about. Many thanks.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, what a good day. The weather turned out much brighter, and as you'll have seen, my mate Terry was up here for a few hours. We spent an awful lot of time catching up. I don't think I've seen him for months. So it was really good to catch up. We had a good laugh. So it was really nice, and of course he helped me a little bit, two-man lift. So yeah, I've had a really good day. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. Productive as always. Got a lot done. What have I done? Well, obviously I've put up my P. Alderman frames. Oh, the two window hanging basket window boxes, whatever you want to call them, ready for some flowers in the spring. What the blooming hell have I been doing? Oh, a lot of raking and hoeing, all this top dress manure and so on. It sits in clods because it's manure and it's all sticky and it's stuck together. And then today, because the ground has been drying out over the last week or two, I've raked a lot of it and it breaks it down and it sort of helps it spread out and blend into the soil a little more. It'll be easier for the worms, etc., to break it down and draw it down into the soil. So that was very productive. Obviously the bad news was the potatoes. I thought, oh, I've got 2 more tubs of potatoes. They'll come in handy, and they're rotten. So, you know, that's the way life is. You win some, you lose some. I'm struggling to remember what the blimmin' hell I've been doing all day. I mean, I'd say I haven't stopped, but that blimmin' hell. When he turned up, me and Terry stood outside there chatting for at least an hour. Then he said, right, I better go and do some work. And he went over to his place and I said, right, the kettle's boiling. You ready for a brew? He came back over and we chatted for another half hour. Maybe I haven't done that much. Anyway, everything is in good order. The plot really is looking its very best. Obviously, I've started painting those pallet collars, raised bed things, and measuring up which paths I'm going to put them in to make it easier so I don't disturb the beds too much. That's going to be an ongoing project over the next week or two as I paint them. I want to give them a good few coats, and then I've got some plastic to put inside so the soil isn't sitting straight on the wood and rotting it any quicker. But yeah, I'm ready now for February. Like I've said to you before, I've got a few things being sown and they're indoors. I don't have a heated propagator, but as we move into February, I'll keep an eye on the forecast and the temperatures. And if I think I can get away with it, I might start sowing some stuff in the greenhouse, which is unheated. I'm going to try and sow the peas a little earlier this year, but again, I've got to watch the weather carefully. So we'll see. Anyway, as January draws to a close, we're almost into February, which is great news. Can't wait for March. Don't want to wish my life away, but I'm really eager to get the season going. So I hope you're enjoying your gardens or your plots, whatever you do. And I guess I'll be back in a fortnight. So whatever you're doing, enjoy yourselves, stay happy, keep laughing. And I'll see you in a fortnight. Take care, look after yourself. Bye for now.